Good morning, everybody, and welcome into Hog Hoops Live. I am your host, Curtis Wilkerson. You can find me over at HawgSports.com with Trey Biddy, Danny West, and Andrew Ellis. Arkansas barely sneaks by UNC Greensboro last night. Another player is injured. Really big game coming this weekend against Oklahoma. The Hogs are back in the top 10. The net rankings, our favorite things in the world, are back. The SEC is looking like a loaded conference. We're going to dive into all of that and get to your questions and comments as always. Should be a really fun show today. Let's get started. All right, everybody. You know all the places to watch and listen at this point, right? Be sure to throw us a like, a thumbs up, 5-star review. Those things really do help a ton in helping us expand our reach, and we definitely do appreciate that. I do want to fill you in quickly on our latest promo over at HawgSports before we get rolling. Not only is it a good offer, it's a unique one. HawgSports is 50% off right now for an annual VIP membership, and Paramount Plus is free with your subscription. So everything we have to offer, whether it be our VIP content and analysis, recruiting coverage, the Razor's Edge message board, all those things is 50% off for the entire year. And you get commercial-free Paramount Plus. That's a $100 value for free. So Trey loves to do the math on all these things, but it really is impressive. You get $207.39 worth of services for just $53.70. And you get to keep Paramount Plus for free as long as you're subscribed at HawgSports. Pretty good deal. Also, our monthly subscribers right now can upgrade to the annual for 50% off and get this deal. So really good stuff there. No promo code required. Just jump over to HawgSports.com. You'll see the story on the front page there. Click, follow the instructions. You're good to go. All right. The sales pitch is done. But you should take advantage. Let's talk some hoops. Arkansas and UNC Greensboro last night in Bud Walton Arena. I mean, nothing ever really goes according to plan, does it? Maybe some of us were guilty a little bit of overanalyzing how good Arkansas looked over the weekend against San Jose State. Myself included, for sure. If you tuned into the live reaction, you know I was a little fired up about that. At the risk of doing that again, I'll start by saying, sometimes you just don't have it. And you've got to grind one out, find a way to win a game. Arkansas did that. But they were also dangerously close and quite frankly, probably should have taken what would have been the worst loss of the Eric Musselman era. And one of the worst losses in Bud Walton Arena history. I'm just saying. The Hogs trailed for 29 minutes of that game against UNC Greensboro last night. Didn't really play particularly well on either end of the floor. But hey, they dug their heels in down the stretch, survived the scare. 65-58 win. So it's kind of the classic, a win is a win. That applies here. Although they paid for it a little bit in the metrics. I'm trying really, really hard. Maybe this is going to be my New Year's resolution. I'm going to try to analyze things on a game-by-game basis without overreacting too much. I don't know if I'm capable of doing it. I'm going to try my best, though. But we're going to talk about this game, obviously. Whatever. It was ugly. Arkansas found a way. I thought they did look really poised down the stretch. Eric Musselman talked about that. A good sign from a young team. Whatever. Learn from it. Be better moving forward. But still some uncharacteristic things that we saw. I'll start with the defense because Arkansas has been solid there all season. The Hogs were allowing 5 made three-pointers per game coming in. UNC Greensboro hit 9. Not a great percentage. Were they 9 of 28? I think it's about 32%. But, still almost double the average. Arkansas was turning teams over nearly 20 times per game on average coming in. Only turned the Spartans over 9 times. That kind of surprised me. I didn't think the Hogs really did a great job in particular of keeping their man in front defensively. And some of that's by design. Arkansas really likes to influence the ball handler one way or the other. But you have to arc the dribble. You got to make him take an angle. You can't just open up your feet and your body and give him a straight line path to the basket. I think Arkansas falls victim to that sometimes. Nick is a good defender, but he's offender A with that kind of thing. So, when they get their feet set, a little bit better and arc the guy instead of opening up, that on-ball defense improves. But, it has been a kind of a consistent issue over the last few games that I've noticed. Ball screen defense, not good. Work in progress. I think they just need to start switching these screens when they can. They're so athletic and long that I think that's something you can not only get away with, but kind of thrive in. They're just not getting the quality hedges or shows consistently from the big men on those. The guards are getting popped on the screens or getting caught going underneath. The talent and the athleticism is there. The communication and the execution maybe is a little bit off. And it wasn't just a last night problem, but it did show last night. It's interesting because there were some glaring issues, and Muss even said after the game he felt like maybe they took a step back, offensively and defensively. But, Arkansas really protected the rim at a high level. They blocked 9 shots. They did a good job of defending without fouling. Only 11 free throw attempts for UNC Greensboro. They only allowed 12 made baskets inside the arc. It's pretty good. So, probably a C level game defensively for Arkansas. And they allow 58 points and hold their opponent to 31.3% shooting. So, hey, you take that, right? But I do think that what last night showed us is in games where Arkansas is not as disruptive as they usually are in terms of creating turnovers, that they do need to be a lot more solid and connected with their half-court defense. And they will be, still early in the season. Offensively, it was kind of a mess from start to finish, to be honest. Arkansas got, a Nick Smith to Mekhi Mitchell lob was the first bucket. Nick had 2, I thought, nice runners, inside the arc, short range. The last one came with about 15 minutes to go in the first half. Arkansas was stuck on 6 points in this game until Devo hit a jumper at the 6:38 mark of the half. So that's more than 8 minutes without scoring a single point on UNC Greensboro. That ain't going to get it done, man. Arkansas got down by a dozen in that game. It kind of felt like they were on the ropes a little bit, but I thought Anthony Black did a really great job of giving a late spark for Arkansas, playing through foul trouble. He was playing with 2 fouls in the first half, but he had a couple buckets, had another really nice dime to Mekhi. I feel like he sparked things the last couple minutes of the first half. Arkansas goes into the half down by 5 instead of, 10, 15 points. Offensively, the second half, it wasn't that much better, honestly, from the field. I think the difference was Arkansas was a lot more aggressive and assertive, especially Nick Smith. He looked like a man possessed. He just looked like a guy that wasn't going to let Arkansas lose that game. Ultra aggressive. Arkansas got to the free throw line, and this was the difference in the game. They got to the free throw line 27 times in the second half. They made 23 of them. UNC Greensboro, I talked about Arkansas defending without fouling. They only had 4 free throws in the second half. That's why you won the game. That was the difference in this one. And again, whatever, you got to find a way if you don't have your A game to pull these things out and avoid the upset. And Arkansas did that. 33.3% from the field for the Razorbacks, just 3 of 18 from 3-point range, 9 assists to 12 turnovers. Looking at the box score here, it was just kind of a clunker, but 26 of 33 at the charity stripe. There you go. You take it. Nick Smith goes for 22 points, game high. 16 of those came in that second half. We talked about how aggressive he was. 9 of 11 at the free throw line. All those came after halftime. I really liked how assertive he was at getting downhill. You want to talk about how healthy is he? Is he 100% back to his, full explosion and things like that? I think seeing him really aggressive and attacking the paint and not shying away from contact is a good sign that he's definitely trending towards that direction. He had a huge steal, and he took it coast to coast in transition, turned it into a 3-point play with 1:30 left. That I think that took Arkansas from, being up 3 or 4 to being up by 7, and that kind of gave you that separation because Arkansas never really put together that run. We've seen some of these teams hang around with the Razorbacks in the past, and we talk so much about their spurt ability. They'll put a 12-0 run on you, a 14-2 run on you, and then it's over. Man, they just couldn't get the shots to fall. They were rolling out on them. A lot of whistles. We talked about how many free throws were shots. They couldn't really ever find a rhythm offensively, so Arkansas really, really, really had to grind this thing out. They were never able to fully pull away. I thought Mekhi Mitchell was a game changer for Arkansas. 13 points, 14 rebounds, 4 blocked shots. He really controlled the paint on both ends of the floor. What a pleasant surprise he's been. I thought when Arkansas signed the Mitchell twins, some people were iffy about it. I feel like those two guys could really help Arkansas as role players. But man, Mekhi has really blossomed. I mean, he looks like a bona fide SEC starter to me. I'm really anxious to see how he looks playing against some greater competition. This weekend will be a really good test for him. But he's versatile. He moves his feet well. He's a strong guy in the paint. 14 rebounds. That's pretty impressive. Interestingly, all 14 of them were defensive, so maybe he could be a little more aggressive on the offensive boards. I think Arkansas as a team could really benefit from that, but still, I thought a really impressive game from Mekhi. Anthony Black was solid. He had 11 points, knocked down 2 of Arkansas's three-pointers on the night. He was super active defensively early on. I mean, the dude was getting his hands on everything. Everything. He's such an instinctive defender. Some people want him to be, a little bit more aggressive, hunting his shot, even though Nick is back. He had 8 attempts from the field, and I think for a guy like AB, 8 to 10 shot attempts per game is probably about right for him. That's what I think personally. I mean, with what he brings to the table elsewhere as a rebounder, a distributor, initiator of the offense, a defender, I'm not hurt by the number of shots he took. I thought that was okay. Ricky Council, it's kind of the first time we've really seen him struggle. I think, he had scored at least 15 points in Arkansas's first 8 games. He had 8 on Tuesday. Scoreless in the first half for the first time all season. He made 1 shot from the field, 1 of 7. Now, he did convert some clutch free throws down the stretch, and that's something that he's done throughout the course of his career. That's good. I'll say Ricky is probably one, though, worth keeping an eye on here in the immediate future. He really established himself as kind of the alpha scorer, the go-to guy in the first month of the season. And whether we want to admit it or not, there's a real adjustment for him with another alpha like Nick returning to the lineup. That doesn't mean there's any animosity there or anything like that. I don't think that's the case at all. But there's only so many shots to go around, so you have to kind of figure that out. Council was averaging 15 shots per game, and he's taken 13 total in the last 2 games combined. So, Nick is going to get his shots up, as he should, but in my opinion, that should not come at the expense of Council sacrificing looks. Maybe some other guys, but I don't think it needs to be Ricky Council. So it's just going to take a while for them to figure out that part of the dynamic. I think it's going to be something that's really interesting to watch because both of those guys, I think, need and deserve to have the ball in their hands with the opportunities to create. And you want to be able to do that organically throughout the flow of the offense and not make it look forced. Like one possession, Nick comes down and he's working, he makes a play, everybody clears out and gets out of the way. All right, he's had a couple shots in a row. Let's get Ricky the ball and let him do it. No, you don't want that. You just want to have flow and rhythm offensively. So it's going to be some trial and error. And that was kind of the downside of Nick being out while he was. It's not like bringing him back is a bad thing at all. It's great. He's going to be one of the best players in the country here, but it does really change the dynamic. And what you had built throughout the course of the preseason kind of gets wiped out once you play 6 regular season games and you kind of start to figure out who you are. Then you add this dynamic back to it, and it's almost like pushing the reset button and starting over. I mean, it's a good problem to have. Like I said, Nick is incredible, and these other guys have emerged in his absence. Well, now you got to bring it all together, and I think that's a little bit of what we saw last night. And again, it comes at the risk of overreacting. It was the same guys out there against San Jose State. They scored 99 points. They shot over 60% from the field and from 3. They look like the Golden State Warriors. And then it was clunky and funky last night. So the answer probably lies somewhere in between. And I posted this on our board earlier, but I think the key is going to be consistency, right? And that's what you see with young teams. Great one night, off the next. You want to find that consistent level of high caliber play, and it's going to take a little bit of time. We knew that. The process has changed a little bit because of injuries and so on and so forth, but worth keeping an eye on. Devo, woo, buddy. He had a double-double in this game, 10 points and 10 boards. But it was a triple-double if you count the 10 missed shots that went along with it on his 3 of 13 night from the field. Devo, he plays so hard. His energy is infectious. He made some big defensive plays. He's diving all over the place for loose balls. He's playing out of position as a power forward there for stretches. I mean, there was really a lot to like about what he did. He's just such a damn wild card. And I love Devo, but the shot selection wasn't great last night. He's shooting 13% now from 3 on the season. Some decision-making things there. Did Arkansas need the flashy, behind the legs bounce pass to Kamani behind him in transition when you got guys on either side of you open on the wing? I don't know about that. Was it the right call to, force it when you don't have numbers in transition and run into a charge? It's just a little bit of up and down right now. Make a jumper, have back-to-back turnovers. Make a good play, get to the rim, finish with that left that you love to see, and then pull up kind of an ill-advised transition 3. So there's some give or take there, right? And, if you're Muss, I think your thought process is, you've gone to war with this guy, and he's going to leave it all on the floor. He's willing and capable of making big plays and big moments that impact winning. It's weird, though, because he's also the veteran, the leader of this young team that I think they need a little bit more stability and consistency from him. At the same time, that's not what makes Devo special. It's not what makes Devo Devo. So I think you have to live with some of the, the good and the bad there and roll with the punches. Wild game, though. I do these player grades after every game, and I think the first sentence I wrote on Devo was, I don't know how to grade this. Because he made so many big plays. He finishes with a double-double, and there are so many head scratchers. Whatever. And then, Jordan Walsh is almost the opposite end of the spectrum, I think, right now. Such an incredible talent and a gifted athlete. But, whereas Devo kind of looked like a guy willing to try to make a play, maybe to a fault, Walsh seemed much more timid and unsure of what he needs to be doing out there right now. And listen, I've written about this within the past week, so I get it. I think everyone just kind of figures it out at their own pace. That's how it works with young players, and it's going to click for Walsh. It is. I do think that two things can be true here. One, Jordan Walsh is eventually going to settle in and be a critical player for Arkansas. Two, Arkansas probably needs it to happen sooner rather than later. You want to speed up that process somehow. So, he gets the start last night, 0 points, 0 rebounds. Look to the observant eye to be a guy who isn't playing with maybe as much confidence as you would hope or expect. I did like to see him take a couple threes there, but, he had a couple tough plays. He had one ball, just kind of, a pass that ran out of his hands. He tried to make a play before he caught the pass. Early in the second half, he gets back in there and has a bad foul kind of right away. Whatever. Walsh's minutes, they have dropped in each of the last 5 games, but his production kind of has too. I think up until last night, though, he was really getting a lot of ticks. So, I don't know. I've been seeing a lot of folks who are upset that he only played 8 minutes last night, saying maybe Muss has too quick of a hook, and he has to be able to play through mistakes and build confidence. Hey, I want Jordan Walsh to be a big piece of this puzzle too, and I'm confident he's gonna be. But in defense of Eric Musselman here, you can't just leave a guy in there who's not ready to play when you're getting ready to lose a home game to freaking UNC Greensboro. Sorry about you. I mean, Muss's job is to win basketball games first, so I don't blame him for going in a different direction there. I probably would have too, and so I hope Walsh gets a little bit of swagger back because, like I said, man, he's so talented. And if he clicks with with everything else Arkansas has going, boy, it really changes things for this team. I think that starts in practice, getting that swagger back a little bit, and hopefully he just plays with more confidence and assertiveness on Saturday. We've seen it from him at different times this year. It's kind of the peaks and valleys things, with the freshman. But there's a balance there. I do think he needs to take some pressure off of himself, maybe think a little less, play a little bit more free. I understand that's easier to do when you aren't worried about getting yanked if you make a mistake, but you also have to understand as a player that your playing time is correlated with how you play during your time. You'll be all right. It's a matter of time. I think maybe there's a little bit more of a sense of urgency now, though, with the situation with Brazile. I mean, I'd be negligent if I didn't talk about Trevon Brazile's situation. He had an awkward spill about midway through the first half last night against Greensboro, immediately grabbing that right knee, had to be helped off the floor, returned to the bench in his warm-ups, his tracksuit a little bit later for the second half. Obviously, he didn't re-enter the game. And you hate to see that. You hate to see a guy go down. I was at Bud Walton, obviously, but apparently the SEC Network crew said it was not expected to be a long-term deal, which is promising. I think it was a good sign that he was back out there on the bench, but Musk kind of, pumped the brakes on that a little bit in his presser afterwards. He said, hey, there's not going to be an update until he gets X-ray MRI, which I assume is happening today on, what is today, Wednesday? Most of I was and am a certified athletic trainer. Without being able to talk to Trevon or evaluate him myself, just seeing that play, that the worry that comes to your mind obviously is the ACL, right? That's the big one. But you just never know in those situations. So hopefully it's not a severe deal. Hopefully the SEC Network was right wherever they got their information from, and testing confirms that. So we'll see. Fingers crossed for some positive news when those MRI results come back. Arkansas really, really needs Trevon Brazile. I do think, even best case, though, just given how gingerly he was moving around, I'd be really surprised if we saw him on Saturday, even if we got good news, or maybe even before SEC play. I mean, that's just speculation and observation there. We'll see, but, they were very cautious with how they handled Nick. And Nick's a special player, a lottery pick. Trevon Brazile has an NBA future as well that'll have to be considered. So I imagine they'll be cautious and make sure that he's 100% and feeling right before they put him back out there. Hell, who knows? Maybe he woke up this morning feeling great. I don't know. But the sooner he's back, the better for Arkansas. Arkansas is back in the top 10 in the AP poll. Despite last night, I do believe that this is the top 10 team at full strength. Obviously need TB to be healthy. Still a lot to work on, like we've talked about, but I do think, like I said in the past, that this team has a higher ceiling for improvement than maybe a lot of teams that are ranked around them or higher than them, which should be scary for the opponents. The SEC, man, it's looking formidable again. People were pissed to see Tennessee and Alabama, jump Arkansas in the AP poll. I mean, it doesn't matter in the big picture, but we could argue resumes all day long, but all three of those teams are just really good. But I think Tennessee's 7, Bama's 8, Arkansas's 9. But then you look, going down the line, Auburn's at number 11. We'll see about that. I'm still not sure if I'm buying it, but that's where they're at. Kentucky at 16. They beat Michigan in that game in London, which was impressive. Mississippi State is undefeated. They're at number 23. They got a couple nice wins on the resume there. Baylor's coming up on the schedule for Arkansas. They're at number 12. So really over the next few months, we'll be talking about the postseason resume and quad 1 wins and opportunities. Arkansas is going to have plenty of those. Plenty. Speaking of quad 1 games, though, the net rankings, baby, they're back. Everyone's favorite thing to hate. I mean, we have more debate about the net rankings than anything else, and I understand why. I mean, it's a hard metric to wrap your mind around. The formula, sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't, right? Those came out Monday morning, and they update daily. And so the fluctuation, I think, is what drives people nuts. I like it. But, Arkansas debuted at number 25 when those came out on Monday. Some people maybe weren't crazy about that. But, they were 8-0 last season when these things came out, and they debuted at 44. So I think it's a pretty good place to be. Hell, it would have been even higher if Louisville wasn't, arguably the worst team in college basketball. It's just wild seeing what's going on with those guys. You wouldn't think that you would go to Maui and take a ding on your resume for a team that you play there. Man, they're really struggling. I hope they figure it out, because well, one, they need to win some games so they stop dragging people's resumes down. But two, I do think Kenny Payne is a good dude and a good coach that inherited a weird situation. But man, it's tough sledding for those guys right now. Arkansas was actually up. They moved up from Monday to Tuesday to number 21 in the net, but they dropped down to 30 after that UNC Greensboro game. Style points do matter. With the way the formula works, playing these types of games don't do anything for you in the net unless you win handily. In the case of UNC Greensboro, it already negatively impacts your strength of schedule as a quad 4 game. And I know you can only play who will play you. I understand every team has bye games, so I'm not criticizing there, but I'm just saying, from a resume standpoint, it just doesn't do anything for you. It pulls down your strength of schedule. It's a quad 4 game, and then your efficiency rating gets dinged in the net even more because you played poorly, and it's weighted because you were at home and it was against a bad team. Hence the 9-spot drop in the net. But like we said, there's tons of opportunity on the horizon. They'll be fine. It's different from team to team. You think about a mid-major, and it's really important for them to stack up that resume now. Because again, in their conference play, they're not going to have as many opportunities. It's the exact opposite for Arkansas. You can afford to kind of feel your way through some of these games against lesser opponents because once you get in the SEC play, those quad 1, quad 2 games are going to be there, consistently. Tennessee's the highest-ranked SEC team in the net right now. They're at number 4. Mississippi State, again, man, they're the surprise there at number 5. They play great defense. I think they have 2 underrated wins. They beat Marquette. They beat Utah. Those are nice wins. Not top 10 victories or anything, but, man, they're up there high. Bama at number 7. Listen, with Bama, I know people around Arkansas don't like Nate Oates, but I've got to give him credit for playing such a tough schedule every year. That keeps them up there, even if they lose a lot of games. It's just kind of a different philosophy, but they really challenge themselves. I think they play at Houston maybe this weekend or sometime this week. Auburn at 19. Arkansas does have a chance to add to that resume this weekend, though, and I think it's a really important game. Oklahoma, they're top 50 right now in the net, which means, this neutral site game in Tulsa, that's a quad 1 opportunity. Arkansas's 1-1 in those games right now, lost to Creighton, beat San Diego State. Big opportunity on Saturday in the Crimson and Cardinal Classic, as they like to call it now. I don't know if I'm buying into that any more than I am the Battle Line rivalry. Why do we have to attach a name to something? Just let them play. Whatever. Arkansas, Oklahoma, the game is a noon tip from the BOK Center there in Tulsa. I think it's ESPN2 for the TV. I do feel like this is a really, really important game for Arkansas. We've mentioned it before, but this has kind of been that spot where the Hogs tend to hit their downswing the last couple years. For whatever reason, right around the holidays. We remember it last year. Oklahoma was their first loss. And it kind of, trickled down from there. The year before that, and the 2 years prior to that, it kind of coincided with an injury. You think about Isaiah Joe, you think about Justin Smith. We'll see what the situation here is with Brazile. Hopefully they get him back real soon. We, as the time we're recording this, we don't know, what a diagnosis is yet. But you kind of have all those factors at play here. A little banged up, didn't play well last night. You'd really like to see the Razorbacks kind of respond and keep tracking in the right direction. And, Oklahoma is not ranked, but they are a projected tournament team right now. And also, look, new year, new team, whatever. But this really is a revenge type of game for Arkansas. If anyone who watched that situation last year, Oklahoma punched the Hogs right in the mouth. 88-66, and Arkansas hadn't been playing great leading up to that game either, but quite frankly, they got embarrassed in that one, and it started a bit of an unraveling. Muss lost it in that game. He got tossed. Ronnie Brewer was holding him back from the ref, the same guy who tossed me out of a game when I was coaching at Lindenwood, but it was a mess, man. You look at Oklahoma this year, look, I'll just say it, like, they're not as talented as Arkansas. They're not nearly as athletic as Arkansas, but what I can say about them, they're just so well coached under Porter Moser. I mean, it's a solid team that I think really maximizes everything that it's capable of. He gets the most out of his guys. They're having a pretty good season. I mean, they're 7-2 coming into this one. Lost their opener 52-51 to Sam Houston State, which is not ideal, but as Andrew Ellis likes to say, Sam Houston State's a wagon, man. I mean, they're 7-1 on the season. They also won at Utah earlier in the year, so that's one of those mid-majors that's probably going to be in the tournament, and they'll be that trendy, 12-5 or 13-4 upset pick. And that's a good team. But, after that game, the Sooners won 6 straight from there. They went to that ESPN Events Invitational over Thanksgiving while Arkansas was in Maui. Beat Nebraska, Seton Hall, and Ole Miss on 3 straight days. I mean, those aren't world beaters, but it's 3 high major programs that you beat on 3 consecutive days. Their other loss was last weekend at Villanova by 4 points. Villanova's not as good as they usually are, but it's a pretty good showing by the Sooners on the road. Beat UMKC by 20 last night. So an interesting team. Oklahoma doesn't score a lot. They don't give up a ton either. I think a lot of that's because they play slow, very slow. I checked yesterday. They were 352 out of 363 teams in adjusted tempo. Arkansas is obviously top 40. They like to play fast. That's going to be an interesting contrast of styles there. Pretty efficient group. Top 50 in adjusted offensive efficiency and effective field goal percentage. They shoot nearly 38% from 3. Arkansas has been really good defending 3 this year. Last night was maybe an aberration, a one-off, hopefully. But they'll test Arkansas's defense in the half court. We'll see if the Hogs can turn them over, get back to business, and disrupting teams. They've really just dominated points off turnovers all season. And that's been the difference in a lot of these games that they played. They didn't have that last night, and they struggled a little bit. So something to keep an eye on. Oklahoma kind of plays that solid, pack line, man-to-man defense. They guard the 3 about as well as Arkansas does. They don't force a lot of turnovers. So, if Arkansas can avoid the self-inflicted wounds there, that would be great. But what Oklahoma does is they contest nearly every shot. They hold teams to low field goal percentages, keep them off the offensive glass. So, they're just solid. Nothing crazy, just solid. Some names to note: Tanner Groves. Man, if you don't remember that name, good for you. He gave Arkansas fits last year. Big body, big beard, strong and crafty player. I mean, it was his ability to really repeatedly burn Arkansas as kind of a pick and pop 3-point shooter really hurt the Hogs. They used that drop coverage with Jalen Williams, and man, he was stroking it on Arkansas. And he's a tough guy, tough assignment inside. He's got good touch around the rim. I think Arkansas is better equipped to defend that this year, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on. He's averaging about 11-7 on the year. I think he had 16 in that game against Arkansas last season. That's Tanner Groves. Other returners, his brother, Jacob Groves, he's taken on a way larger role. He starts now. He played like 10 minutes per game last year. Excuse me. But he starts this year. He's not as good as his brother. He's also a different kind of player. But he's playing well, nearly 10 points per game. He's been a real weapon from 3 at his size, shooting over 40% from 3. He's 6'9", a little skinnier and more lean than his brother, but he's a nice player. Jalen Hill, really athletic, bouncy wing for them. He scored in double figures against Arkansas last year. I think the guy to really know, probably their best player is a newcomer, Grant Sherfield, transfer point guard from Nevada. He's a guy that really makes things go for Oklahoma. Leads the team in scoring over 16 points per game, shooting nearly 50% from 3, and it's at high volume, around 5 assists per game. He doesn't really turn it over, so he's kind of the straw that stirs the drink there for Oklahoma. It's going to be a really interesting matchup there for Arkansas. I'm anxious to see what they do with him. He's really good. He's 6'2", so he's not the biggest guard in the world. I think you'll see Muss. Well, you would like to see him throw, maybe some size at him with Anthony Black to disrupt. But you had to have Anthony Black defending power forwards for times last night with TB out. So I don't know how that impacts things for Arkansas. I still think we'll see, him on Sherfield for a while. I'm sure Devo is going to get some reps on him as well. I think a matchup Arkansas really could have taken advantage of in this game is Trevon Brazile. I just don't see anyone on Oklahoma's roster who can match his athleticism, his versatility. I'd just be surprised if we see him for this one on Saturday. We'll see. And that kind of makes matchups interesting, on the flip side. For a guy like Jordan Walsh, if he starts at the power forward, and I anticipate he will, well, like I said, Oklahoma likes to play with two actual bigs. Both of the Groves bros are 6'9" or taller, and they've got some bigger forwards that they bring off the bench. So, how is Arkansas able to win that matchup? Is a guy like Walsh punished inside because he's a little undersized, or does he take advantage of it on the other end because they can't guard him, they can't defend him and keep him in front? And his athleticism, kind of takes control against some slower-footed guys. It's going to be interesting to watch. What that might mean is we see more of the, Makai and Kamani lineups at the 4 and 5 if Trevon can't go. I wish that meant we would see more Makai and Jalen Graham, and maybe we will. Graham is, he's such a weird guy. He gets in there in some of these games, and he'll score 10 points for you in 5 minutes, and he's active, and he's all over the floor. You just really think he can provide a spark, and then, you have games like last night against Greensboro. He gets in there for a couple minutes. He missed a layup, and he had a turnover, and just didn't, I don't know, it's almost like you can just tell within the first 30 seconds if he's got it or not on a given night. If Arkansas needs somebody to step in and provide some minutes, for an injury here for a while, boy, he could be a guy that could really do it. It just kind of comes down to consistency. At any rate, it should be a really fascinating matchup. I think it's going to be a fun game. The crowd was awesome last year on both sides. I'll be there again in person. I'm definitely looking forward to it. All right, let's get over to the chat. See what's going on in the comments here. Let me scroll back to the front. Dustin Hoofman says, when you play as many games as they play during a season, you don't win them all by 50 points, no matter the opponent. No, you don't. But when you play teams like that and you don't perform well, you get dinged for it. It's just the way it works. Cody L. James says, if we want to get Walsh more opportunities on offense, I think setting him up for pick and rolls is the way to get him in the flow. The dude's a slasher. Yeah, when he's assertive, that handle's a little bit loose still. So when he's doing a lot of dancing and a lot of east to west, that's when he gets into trouble. But I think if he comes hard off of a screen or he just rips and goes with a straight line drive, he can be really, really effective there. And we've seen that from him at times. When he just puts it on the deck and goes to the rim with power, it looks really good. I think he's a guy that you could use, on both ends of the pick and roll. It creates some matchup problems. You remember Arkansas used to do that with like Isaiah Joe and Mason Jones in the pick and roll or pick and pop. It was kind of wild to watch. You could do that with a guy like Walsh, where he could be the ball handler, or he could set the screen, and you can roll him because he can finish above the rim and catch lobs, or you can pop him out and he can catch from there, maybe get his feet set for a three, or again just kind of rip it and take it right to the rim, as the defender's recovering. I wouldn't mind seeing some of that. I think it's a good idea. Michael Drag says, to your comment about AB, why don't you feel he can take a game over and being in that 15 to 25 per game? I don't know that I said that, or that wasn't what I was intending to say. We've seen that. He scored 26 in back-to-back games in Maui, so we know he can do that. But again, there's just so many shots to go around, right? And so Nick is a gunner. He's a scoring-minded guy. Ricky Council is the same way. If Anthony Black is taking 10 shots a game, I think that's good because I think he's going to be efficient. I think that's going to get him in double-digit points-wise. And then he should be leading the team in assists. He's going to average over 5 rebounds per game at the point guard position. He's going to get a lot of steals, so he's impacting the game in so many other ways that I just don't think he's a guy that needs 15 shots a night or whatever to really have a positive impact on winning. That's all I'm saying. Of course he can take over a game offensively if he needs to. He's done it already against, the best competition that Arkansas has faced. Let's see here. Michael also says, do you think Jordan Walsh is in over his head right now? He seems lost and very unsure of himself and his role. Yeah, man, I don't know about in over his head, but I do think he does look a little bit lost and unsure. I think that's fair. And it's kind of an interesting role for him. He starts at that power forward spot, but then he also plays a lot of three. So, he's a guy that's got to learn a couple different positions there. But he is, I think, just trying to find his way. I do think whether it's fair or not, or whether it should be there or not, he probably feels a little bit of pressure. He's the third 5-star, the McDonald's All-American. He's in the mock drafts, and you're seeing, Anthony Black thrive. You're seeing Nick Smith come back and kind of pick up right where he left off right away. And then it's just taking a little bit more time for Walsh. And so maybe he feels more pressure to deliver and he's thinking about it too much. I don't know. And I also think, Muss admittedly is probably trying to figure out exactly, the best way to utilize him. Sometimes that happens with these versatile guys. You have guys who can do a lot of different things and you think, man, I can just throw them out there and they'll figure it out. We can do so many different things with this guy. But on the flip side, it's, well, how do we put him in the best position to succeed? And so, like Muss said, hey, we really want Walsh to let it fly from three. We want him to feel comfortable getting those shot attempts up. Okay, and so that's something for him to consider. But, there's also the part of his game that really has always stood out is just his raw athletic ability. And, so how effective could he be as a basket cutter, an offensive rebounder, a rim runner, a guy that gets out in transition and finishes? Somebody brought it to my attention last night that through 9 games, Jordan Walsh has 1 dunk. That is, I would not in a million years have guessed that would be the case. It's crazy. I mean, he's so athletic. I mean, that's kind of what excited everybody about him, when Arkansas signed him. I think he's just dunking on everybody. And we haven't seen that pop just yet. And some of it comes, hey, man, college basketball, it's a different world. It's not sweet in the paint, right? So you got to go up there and finish with authority and strength and power. But it has been interesting that we've kind of seen a shift where it's, hey, we want him to get a bunch of three-point attempts up, and we haven't seen so much of that athletic pop from him. But it's going to come. I think right now the best thing that Walsh could do, in my opinion, is get back to kind of where he was in the beginning of the season, where he was just being an extremely disruptive, Muss calls him a violent defender, where he's just wreaking havoc on that end of the floor. And then, man, if you get a set shot from three, take it. If you can get some garbage points around the rim, take them. But really put your focus and your energy on defense and let the rest come to you. I think that could get him some more confidence going. Let's see. Ricky the Fourth will settle in and reemerge as a go-to guy. I certainly think that he can. And again, the game against San Jose State, he finished with 17. He didn't take that many shots, but he was way more efficient. Way more efficient. 1 of 7 last night against Greensboro. He had some shots for him out or whatever. I just think, whereas I said, I don't think Anthony Black needs to take, a ton of shots to make a huge impact. I think Ricky Council does need those shot attempts. That's kind of the way he's wired, is to be able to get the ball in his hands and create and make plays to go along with what he's able to do in transition. And I think that'll come. Let's see here. Looks like I lost my place a little bit. There we go. Stephen Brimley says, Devo does many things well, but his shot selection and decision-making sometimes are off. Yeah, it's true. He's a wild card. It's interesting because at times it's like a game-to-game thing. There's some games where you just don't get too much from him. And there's some games where he is the X factor in a win. You kind of had the best or worst of both worlds last night. He's kind of all over the place. There's never a dull moment though with Devo. I love how intense he's been lately. I'm sure everybody's seen that photo at this point where he's defending this guy and he's just screaming at him. His veins are sticking out of his neck. He's yelling at the guy. That's the kind of intensity that you love to see. Maybe he could reel it in just a little bit, but you don't want to take, what makes a guy special away from him. So like I said, it's just kind of like a weird give or take with him. Gil McGarity, my man, says, how you doing, Curtis? Congratulations on your marriage. Thank you. I'm doing good. Hope everything is well your way. Let's see. Stephen Brimley says, so many great players in one ball. Right. That's just it. You got to figure out, how to allocate those shots. And, some of that's going to come within the flow of the game. Like against San Jose State, I think Arkansas was great about it. They weren't forcing the issue. They kept the ball moving. They were sacrificing a good shot to make the extra pass for a great one. Those are the things that you love to see, and sometimes it's easier to do when a team has no chance to defend you and when the shots are falling. Dustin Hoofman says, deep bench will allow Muss to get a player in the game for someone who isn't having the best night. Nothing against the player, just about winning the game. Agreed. I think we saw that last night, with Walsh. I'm sure the plans were to play him much more than 8 minutes. And it's not like he played awful. He made a couple mistakes there. And again, he looked a little bit, timid or cautious out there, but he wasn't playing awful. They could have put him back out there, but I think, you just felt more comfortable with the combination you had on the floor. And Arkansas had to make some weird adjustments when Brazile went out, because I'm sure he was a heavy part of the game plan in this one. So that's true. If that's the thing about having a deep team. If one guy doesn't have it, you have somebody else to turn to. That's why I feel good about the front court for Arkansas. Makai's been playing great, and he's starting to become a lot more consistent. But if he doesn't have it, well, you got a guy who looks just like him, his brother, that you can bring in. If he doesn't have it, Kamani's going to bring the energy. Jalen Graham can give you a spark. You got so many different options that you can turn to. So, on one hand, you want to have your core guys, and obviously you trust them and believe in them to get the job done. But when you got a bunch of hoopers like Arkansas does, you can turn to that bench, give them a shot. George Homer says, Curtis, do you think that Devo will ever get to appropriately aggressive? No. We're 3 years into this by now. I think, Devo is who he is, and he's going to have his moments where he's just fantastic and he's a game changer. He's going to have those moments where you want to pull your hair out. And I think that's what you just gotta love and embrace about him. Listen, he's going to play a bunch of minutes for this team. What I will say is, for the most part this year, he's done a really good job about limiting the turnovers. He had some games where he had high turnovers last year. He's getting better about that. So, if the decision-making can be questionable at times, that's any player. The shot selection, I'd love to see him shoot more mid-range and get to the rim and finish with that left hand, especially while the threes aren't falling for him. I think he's 3 of 23 on the season, but I don't know what appropriately aggressive is for Devo. He's a million miles an hour at all times out there, and I think that's just the way it's going to be. Stephen Brimley says, even if Trevon's injury is not severe, he'll need to sit for a few games. You would think. And again, I don't know. Dude, he could have woke up this morning feeling great and back out at practice this afternoon. I don't think that's the case, just based on, everybody saw it. It looks like at the very least, he's probably really sore this morning. So we'll see how that goes. It's just the sooner the better. He's such a talented player, such a unique player. And, you hate to see anybody get hurt. The sooner he's back out there, the better. Stephen Brimley despises the net rankings. I do too. It's just such a weird deal. It's hard to get a grasp on. Joey Moses says, Muss is giving Devo too much rope. Anyone watching him play has got to admit he's hurting the team. Would you rather have Devo taking 15 shots or give those shots to Black and Council? Yeah, I think I'm on the fence with that one. Is he giving him too much rope, or has Devo earned that rope the last couple years? And we know that Muss is a guy who really relies on experience and guys he can trust. And, Devo didn't play, I think, anywhere near as well as he wanted to his sophomore season last year. High expectations. He was fine, but he definitely didn't take the step forward that he wanted to. But at the NCAA tournament, what was Muss saying? I've been to war with this guy, gone to battles with him. I know what to expect. I know what I can get from him. I trust him. That matters. And so you're in this weird, grind it out kind of game where you're just trying to find a way. Well, then you turn to the guys who have done it for you in the past. And I think that's why we saw a lot more Devo, and maybe less of some of the new guys in a game like last night. Where I will definitely agree with you, though, is, that was a lot of shot attempts, especially if it's not falling. Hey, if he's on a heater, shoot 20 shots, let that thing fly, man. But yeah, I agree. If you're shooting 20% or whatever from the field, maybe, the extra pass is a better idea there. And that's kind of, another thing I was getting at where, I was talking about the dynamic to watch between Nick and Ricky is Nick needs to get his shots, and he should. It shouldn't come at the expense of Counsell getting his. And, I think that, the sacrifice there probably, shave a couple shots off from every other guy maybe on the roster. And, I think that probably includes Devo. That doesn't mean never take a shot, but yeah, it was maybe a little bit much last night. Stephen Brimley says, we've done well versus man-to-man D. We've had problems with zone D. Well, they were a little thrown off against Troy. I'll give you that. But they really picked apart San Jose State's. And we saw it for a little bit last night with UNC Greensboro. I think that was a good switch. Honestly, I don't think I've given enough credit to UNC Greensboro's coach. He had a really good game plan for Arkansas, and I thought when he went to that zone out of a timeout there in the second half, it kind of threw Arkansas off for several possessions there. But then I think they did a nice job. They kind of cracked the shell. Mackay cut baseline. He got a dunk. And then Arkansas was able to kind of find their spots and get back to being aggressive. Sometimes when a team goes to a zone, as you adjust to it, you see a lot of just holding the ball over your head, passing around the perimeter, and it kind of puts you back on your heels. I think after Mackay got that dunk, Arkansas got back to being aggressive and attacking. You can still drive it on a zone. They started doing that. They were getting to the free throw line. It looked better. But teams are going to continue to zone them until they shoot them out of it. Joey says it is early, I know, but does Smith know how to get in front of a guy dribbling to the bucket? They went around him 5 or 6 times last night. Yeah, I kind of touched on that with I think some of it's by design with Arkansas trying to influence, a guy one way or take away one side of the court. They try to ice some screens from time to time, but I think you just got to have better angles with that footwork. I mean, if you're completely opened up and there's a straight line path to the rim, any college basketball player is going to go right by you and go to the rim. There's nothing you can do to recover. So just some adjustments on the angles there will definitely help. Stephen Brimley says this may be a game for a Graham breakout. I'm telling you, if Trevon can't play, I like that look. I really do. I think that Graham could really give Jacob Groves fits in the post with that spin move, his ability to score. And Graham, maybe not the most physical guy in the world, defending the paint and the rim and things like that, but he's mobile, he can move, and I think he could guard that guy out on the perimeter. I kind of hope we see a little bit more of him. Gil McGarity says Wilson Contreras just signed with the Cardinals. That better be true. That better be true. If it is, it just made my day, and you broke the news to me live. Let's go. Man, if I find out that's a lie, I'm going to be really upset. You would do that to me because I know you, and you understand the Cubs versus Cardinals dynamic between me and you and Huck. So it's the first thing I'm going to check when I get off here. George Elmer says, Curtis, you got to convince Trey that sending you to Maui was worth it. Those after-game press conferences were awful. Dude, they were so bad. I mean, we got absolutely nothing from that. It kind of hurt our content. Because, there's like 2 questions, and one of them is, well, how's your experience in Maui been? Well, it's great. It's Hawaii. What do you think? So, yeah, that wasn't great. But honestly, man, I was down with the flu, and it was kind of coming on before Maui even started. So I would have been really upset if I would have been there and been sick at the same time. But I'll be in Tulsa for this game. I'll be in North Little Rock. I'm going to get to some of these SEC games this year, the ones that are a little bit closer that make sense in terms of travel. And then, NCAA tournament. We'll see how far they go. Let's see. We'll get to a couple more here. A bunch of comments today. This is awesome. George Omer says, I saw a couple times last night Nick turning the ball over, just dribbling it away. Do you think he's still knocking off some rust? Yeah, I noticed that a couple times. One, it just looked like it hit a weird spot on the floor or something. He had to try to dive on it and lost it there. Yeah, it's probably shaking off a little rust. Z Beeler says, my man Curtis, a little late today, but still watching. Good. Appreciate you tuning in. Stephen Brimley says, this season's making me miss coaching basketball. Me too. There's so many possibilities with this team. It's hard. If hell, even as just a fan, you like to just sit around and think about all the things you would like to do or like to see. And if you coached the game before, you see all these adjustments that what if he tries this? What if he tries that? What about this lineup combination? You heard me up here. Well, you should start switching screens. As if I'm telling Eric Musselman what to do. I'm not. He's a great coach, too. And the cool thing about Muss is, every press conference that you have with him is like a learning experience. Because if you ask him the right questions, he'll get into the nuances with you. I feel like I learned something every time we talk to him. Let's see. A couple more here. MP Rich says, Devo had a double-double. Come on, stop whining about Devo. Did you watch the game, though? I said he had a double-double, but his double-double and Mekhi Mitchell's double-double were two very different double-doubles. We'll say that. Okay. I think that about wraps it up. All right, cool. Man, went for about an hour today. That was fun. That was a good show today. We had a lot to talk about. Maybe this was good for Arkansas. Get a little bit of a scare, a little bit of a wake-up call. You survive it. Kind of refocus a little bit. One thing that was interesting, Muss said in the lead up to that game that Arkansas kind of had some of the shortest practices they've had since he's been coaching here. Just because he felt like they were connected, felt like they were, bought in, locked in. Then you have a game like this, and it was funny, because somebody mentioned in the presser, about these short practices, and the first thing Nick Smith said was, oh, it ain't going to be a short practice tomorrow. And he was talking about 2-hour film sessions and long practices, so I wonder if they're going to get back after it a little bit, but I think they're going to be refocused. This group has a good mindset. They really do. It's not a selfish team. And I think they've kind of got their eyes on the prize here. So I would expect that we'll see a lot better product on Saturday. And that's going to be a fun one. Again, Saturday, 12 o'clock Central Time, BOK Center in Tulsa, Arkansas versus Oklahoma. A little bit of a grudge match for the Razorbacks. Should be a lot of fun. Like I said, I'll be there. So we'll have a live reaction video that goes up on our YouTube page in the aftermath of that. If you go back and listen to the one I did from there last year, it was not a happy conversation, so hopefully I got a big smile on, and we're talking about a Razorback win after this one on Saturday. But at any rate, as always, really appreciate you guys tuning in. Man, just a ton of comments and engagement in here today. That's awesome. I love that. Continue to do it, please. It makes the show better. But like I said, we'll be with you from Tulsa on Saturday, and we'll probably have a show sometime, studio show like this sometime in the midweek next week. To get you all primed up for this game in North Little Rock. This has been Curtis Wilkerson with HawgSports.com. Thank you guys, and we will talk to you next time.